Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark Weather. It's great to have you here with me today. We're going to start off with the tropics. Going to go over some features. We may have a tropical wave try to develop into something come the end of next week. So we're going to be watching the Caribbean. Eastern Pacific, we could have our first tropical storm or hurricane. And we're going to be looking beyond to see just how active the tropics are going to get here. Because if we look right around the Central Caribbean here, we have a very interesting feature come the middle to latter part of next week into the first part of June that bears watching that could try to develop into our first tropical system. And don't forget, everyone, if you haven't caught my 2025 hurricane outlook for the Atlantic Basin, link in the description down below and at the end of this video. And we're going to be looking at nor'easter-style coastal systems across eastern North America that could really put a damper on your Memorial Day plans. And we'll take a look at beyond to see if this weather pattern is going to break anytime soon with all this rain, wind, and cooler temperatures. Let's get into it. All right, here for the tropics, this is where things get interesting. We're going to start off with the Caribbean here, and then down in through parts of South America. Look at this little feature. This is the intertropical convergence zone. Here's Trinidad, Tobago, the Lesser Antilles. So you get the idea. It's pretty suppressed this far to the south. But as we go out here in time, you see things do start off pretty quiet. So let's just get a big picture of the Atlantic. This looks pretty active out here, and some of these may try to flare up southeast of Trinidad, Tobago. The good news is you're going to eke out a pretty good weekend throughout much of the Caribbean here. Maybe just some scattered showers poking their way in around Trinidad, Tobago, and through the Caribbean islands here. Much of northern and Central America looks pretty clear as a bell here. So that is the good news. Now watch as we continue to go through time. Those showers and thunderstorms continue to increase around Trinidad, Tobago, Nicaragua, Panama, Costa Rica, and the northern coastline of South America. Now watch this. This is around the 27th next week, so we're getting around Tuesday into Wednesday. Dominican Republic and Haiti really starts to get some real heavy rain here on the GFS. And, you know, it's short-lived, but look what's just to the south here, coming off the coast of South America. Now, look what's going on here in the Eastern Pacific. Obviously, we get a little bit of a flare-up starting, and this is the area we're going to be watching. So stay tuned. We could have a big old hurricane here in the Eastern Pacific by this point. We'll have to see if it just goes out to sea or not. But look at this. This little feature here on the GFS by the middle of next week bears watching, because this is the feature that obviously we've been watching pop up on the models for some time. And this time it's showing up a little bit further to the east and targeting Dominican Republic with some torrential rain and Haiti. So this could be a big problem, but you see it actually extends all the way down into parts of the southwestern Caribbean. Look at that. Our hurricane over here could get pretty close to the Mexican coast. That is pretty interesting. So this is around the 30th, a lot of time to watch this, but Eastern Pacific might be getting ready for a big blockbuster start. So watch this as we head through the 30th into the 31st. Look at this elongated area of low pressure. This is what we have to watch this time of year. This can flare up any sort of spin-ups, and it's really starting to look ominous right around the 30th into the 31st. Even if this doesn't develop into anything tropical or subtropical, you're talking about life-threatening rains here. And look at Jamaica does start to get in the act of it around the 31st as well. We get these banding of tropical downpours and rain just moving in. And moving up through the eastern Bahamas as well. You're going to Turks and Caicos area going to be getting inundated here. And you can see this starts to pivot towards the north and west through June 1st into the 2nd here. You can see this whole area. This is really, really interesting. It's just like a conveyor belt of tropical moisture, and it does start to push north and westward here towards the Cayman Islands and eventually Honduras and Nicaragua here. And eventually by the 4th into the 5th, it heads into the Western Caribbean here. So we do start to get some interesting tropical development that may try to form off this again in the Eastern Pacific. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits here for our European model analysis of the Caribbean Western Atlantic here. So as we continue through the Thursday into Friday, you can see we have some scattered showers across the northeastern Caribbean islands here. Trinidad, Tobago, you're getting some rain, and definitely down and through Costa Rica and Nicaragua, Honduras, and Belize here. We're going to be watching for those showers. Now watch as we head into the weekend. It gets a little quieter. You still have some scattered showers across the Caribbean islands. The big story is going to be down and through here, parts of the southern Central American countries. And watch this off just southeastern Trinidad Tobago here. Look at this. This really starts to bubble up by Sunday. I'm a little bit concerned. There is some tremendous rainfall action heading to the northwest here. So if you're in Trinidad Tobago here, some of these southern islands, watch out. This impulse moves through by Monday. It gets into the eastern Caribbean. Yeah, I know your eyes are drawn over here to the eastern Pacific because we could be seeing our first hurricane. But look at this. May 26th into the 27th. This feature kind of hangs out right around Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, east of Jamaica here. And this does continue to try to flare up through parts of the area Wednesday into Thursday. You can see this pivoting towards the west. Now look at down here in the southeast, again, poor corner of the screen. More trouble is brewing here. And this one surges through the Lesser Antilles May 31st here into June 1st. And this is the one that's going to pack the big punch here, because you can see it really showing up prominently here. Very broad area of low pressure that comes out of this tropical wave. You can see we could be looking at some inundating rains here from Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, southeastern Bahamas here. And this just kind of hangs out for the next several days through June 3rd into the 4th. European does start to pivot this entire conveyor belt of elongated area of low pressure. You can see the bend in the isobars here. This is a very disturbed area of weather, and this is one we're going to watch because we can get spin-ups off this that can form into tropical systems. So this is something we're going to continue to watch as we go through the first week of June. Look at that. It's getting into the Western Caribbean by this point. So definitely all eyes are going to be watching this as it moves across the Caribbean. And here we go, North Atlantic sea surface temperature analysis. Look at the Caribbean all the way off the U.S. East Coast and the Gulf. We are just on fire here. Even the Eastern Pacific looking well above average here. We're primed for any sort of tropical development here as we go into the first part of hurricane season. And look at equivalent precipitation amounts here on our European run for the Western Caribbean. Yeah, it's mostly down here through Costa Rica and southern Nicaragua, close to 150 millimeters here. That does start to push up towards northeast Honduras, the northern coast of Honduras over to Belize by the first part of June. And look at this. This is what things get really interesting. Right around the 2nd and 3rd of June, right around Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica. And look at that up through the Bahamas as well. We could be looking at some pretty interesting features here. Look at this, filling in with tremendous rainfall totals all the way over to Nicaragua, Honduras. But look at this, even the east coast of Jamaica getting upwards 150 millimeters. Most of Jamaica getting upwards between 60 and 90 millimeters. Dominican Republic, look at this. Some areas approaching in the central parts, 100 millimeters, averaging out to 60 to 90 millimeters. And Puerto Rico, a little bit lesser amounts, except here into the eastern part as well. Now, what's it looking like on our GFS model here? So if we just pile this up, very similar. A quiet week is ahead for the most part until we get to later next week. Look at this. Wow. Yeah, the GFS is kind of holding on to the same thing that the European has been. These two areas that look really ominous. Look at the east coast of Nicaragua. 450, 500 millimeters of rainfall. That is intense. And look at eastern part of Jamaica here near Portland Parish. Look at this, 250 millimeters of rain. I'm going to keep you posted here in Jamaica because there could be some rainy times ahead for June. Look at over towards the Dominican Republic as well. Upwards of close to 190 millimeters in some of these areas. So, you know, this is some really heavy rain. And here we go, GFS for the Eastern Caribbean. Very similar situation. Not too much until we get to the middle of next week, right around the 28th, 29th. We do start to fill in this feature that's moving through here. So look at this. Even the Lesser Antilles getting upwards close to 100 millimeters here in the central and northern parts. And look at here into Puerto Rico. Some areas could approach 3 to 4 inches depending on where you are, especially the eastern and western areas. So watch out. Trinidad Tobago, you could see some big flare up down here as well. Some areas close to 100, 125 millimeters. So watch out. And here we go with the European run for the Eastern Caribbean. So here we are. Yeah, it's not too bad through next week. You know, you get some of these showers, but watch here. That first week of June, that's where we really start to fill in here on the European model. It really goes crazy in this area. And then here through the Lesser Antilles, some areas could approach 100, 125 millimeters as well, especially on these eastern trade winds. So watch out. And looking at our weather stateside here with our big old low. Let me just put this into motion for you over the next 60 hours. You can see what this thing's going to be doing. We have two circulations, one back across the Great Lakes and one along the coast. This is going to be some crazy weather as we head through the end of the week into Memorial Day weekend. So let's just pick up here as we get into the overnight hours of Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Here we go. So this is what we're going to be looking at. 1 a.m. Look at this big old mess. And you know what? Obviously, we've needed rain here in New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania for a while, but we're going to get quite a bit of it. Another slug of moisture through 6 a.m., 9 a.m. here on Thursday. Look at, we're really socked in from I-81 on eastward here to the Catskills, Hudson Valley, the Poconos, these areas just getting hit. And look at Cape Cod over here, Rhode Island. We are getting blasted with some very heavy rain. You can see the circulation is just right about in this region. So classic nor'easter type style here in late May. And this is going to hold the temperatures down too. The winds are going to be blasting. We'll go over the wind field with this system as well. But here it is, 3 a.m. on the 23rd as we head into Friday. You can see some wraparound moisture as well continuing off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario here, almost some lake enhancement. And that, with the diurnal heating here through 4 p.m. on Friday, we get these pop-up showers and thunder showers continuing from Ohio all the way up into New England here. So this is going to fill in again as we head throughout the day. And then look at this, as we head throughout the evening into the overnight, start your Memorial Day weekend. Look at this big old rain up here from the New York State Thruway north to the Adirondacks. And we got some showers hanging around eastern Ohio here, western Pennsylvania. So it is going to set us up for a very unsettled weekend. If we look down here into the plains, yeah, we're going to have some complexes of big thunderstorms as we stretch through 4 p.m. on Thursday. So look at that. Watch out for that. Some big boomers moving down through Dallas and eventually Austin here. Maybe a few showers and thunder showers here through parts of Florida as well. But we'll get these complexes of showers and thunderstorms continuing. All right, so let's take a look at Windfield with this system, of course, as we look through the next couple days. Here we go. So Thursday morning, you can see the winds really starting to howl up here into parts of the Northeast, even the ridge tops of the Appalachians here. Now look at this here into the Northeast, especially coastal areas. That's where the wind's going to be strongest, closer to 50, 60 mile per hour gusts up here, parts of eastern Long Island and Cape Cod here. So watch that as we get into Thursday night and Friday. You do start to see how quickly the winds slacken here through parts of New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania through Friday. But look at that. It looks like this thing has an eye right here. Look at that. Right around Nantucket Island, right up through Cape Cod. So look at the Gulf of Maine here. This is for you also into Canada. Look at parts of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. You could be getting buffeted by wind gusts here. Very strong winds in excess of 80, 90 kilometers an hour here. But look at this. This looks like a hurricane here. Look at this. Right up through the Gulf of Maine. And this is the timestamp getting into Saturday, late Friday night, early Saturday morning. You see we have still some gusts behind it here as well. But I wanted to show you, I know a lot of you have been complaining about wind here all the way down through the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Look at this. This is with the start of this coastal low. And this is actually going to continue through the overnight hours before slackening off on Thursday morning. Look at this. And you do start to get another flare-up Thursday afternoon. So watch out there. There it is with the pressure gradient that's going to be continuing to funnel through North Carolina and parts of Virginia and South Carolina here. All right, so here we are with the GFS. Picking up where our future radar left off, you can see what's happening here across the Northeast as we continue the double barrel low, the coastal low, and then stretching on up into the Gulf of Maine by 5 p.m. on Friday. That is going to move up to the Canadian Maritimes. I'll go over that in my Canadian weather outlook several minutes from now in this video. But look at this. So through the 25th into the 26th, you see what's going to be happening up here into the Northeast. So obviously we have rain through Saturday. We have some scattered showers that are trying to pop up here on Sunday. So we may eke out a good day for some up here, not just all. And here across the plains, we're going to watch for our next severe weather outbreak. You can see through 11 p.m. This could be Memorial Day outbreak. Now look through 8 a.m. We're starting off clear up here into the Northeast. That is some good news. Clear here in Florida, the Gulf Coast. But look at here through 8 p.m. This is what I'm talking about. This is Memorial Day. And we could be looking at explosive thunderstorm development heading east from the Mississippi River Valley down to Texas here. So watch out. It could be a very busy day. Now watch this. It does wait till about 5 a.m. on Tuesday, but this next storm makes a run for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. You can see heavy rain pushing into Cleveland, Scranton, New York City here, Washington, D.C., all the way down to Virginia Beach and the Outer Banks here. So you get the idea. Another nor'easter setting up here, more prominent here on the GFS than the European model that I'll show you momentarily. But here it is. It's looking pretty interesting through 2 a.m. on the 28th. Showers just continuing, that unsettled weather pattern continuing. But I got some good news here. Both models are kind of indicating by the 30th, look at this, high pressure really building in. You start to see this ring of fire develop. Watch this. As we head into the first week of June, well, you could see it there. The GFS is being a little more pessimistic here. June 1st, we're showing another coastal trying to develop here. Now watch this. If we can try to get some sort of unanimous agreement with the models, that's almost impossible right now. But here it is on the GFS. This is a little weaker than it has been. We are seeing some coastal action through June 4th here, unfortunately. But this is much weaker than it's seen. The European, I promise you, is much more optimistic here. Here it is, June 5th. It's a little bit later here on the GFS. Here is that high pressure really starting to consolidate across eastern North America. There's our last frame. And you can start to see evidence of that ring of fire. All right, so for the European run, picking up where our future radar left off. So we're going to be dealing with this system in the Northeast. It's a classic nor'easter. Look at that, 993 millibars by Friday morning here. Even some mixed precipitation up in the highest peaks of northern New England, the White and Green Mountains up here, and then wrap around moisture around it. So just going to fill in through Saturday morning here. That rain just continuing behind it. Now look at here. This is our next feature. We might actually eke out an okay day up here in parts of the Northeast, but look at this. This is where the severe weather really starts to lie. We're going to get these complexes in between this baroclinic zone coast. So cold to the north, and then you have this warm to the south. You get the idea here. So we're going to continue to watch this. Complexes of storms diving southward. We could have a Memorial Day severe weather outbreak from the southern plains up to the mid-Mississippi River Valley. Even complexes spreading east towards eastern North Carolina. You could get clipped as well, so watch out. And this is just going to continue. High pressure dominating up here. Let's just back this up to Memorial Day. So we may try to get, just a few scattered showers up here, but for the most part, we might hold on to some okay weather with this high pressure. Now, look what's coming for Tuesday, later Tuesday. This low pressure, the initial low moving up through the Ohio Valley, secondary low development near Delmarva Peninsula here. And this does go coastal on us. It does kind of push out to sea, but it leaves some energy behind it. So we'll continue to focus those showers and thunderstorms. So you get the idea. A very stormy pattern is really entrenching across the eastern part of North America. We do get some complexes of showers and thunderstorms through South Carolina through the first part of June here. Now, high pressure does start to really try to build in here as we get a little bit of a ridge, and you start to see this evidence of a ring of fire. So that could be the start of a warming trend here across the east with stormier times around this ring of fire. All right, so taking a look at rainfall totals here. Yeah, the Ohio Valley into the Great Lakes and Northeast, I know you need the rain, but there it is. 1 to 2 inch plus amounts, some of those red zones upwards of 3. Look at here over the weekend. We could have some strong to severe thunderstorms continuing. That's where we're going to be a bullseye of 4 to 8 inch rain totals. And look at this. As we get into early to mid next week, we're piling on more rain in the Northeast here, bringing our totals closer to that 3 to 3.5 inch mark. But as we stretch all the way through June 6 here, you can see it's very unsettled across the east. All right, so the European run is very similar here in nature. You can see through Sunday here, we're getting all the way into these 1 to 2 inch amounts. Northeast Ohio, 3/4 to 1.5 inches. And look at here in the parts of southern New England, we could be approaching 2.5 to 3 inches. Now, as we just extend through Memorial Day, it's a little dry, but look at this. As we stretch through the middle of next week into June 5th here, you get the idea. From the plains all the way up the East Coast into the Northeast, we are looking at solid amounts of 2 to 4 inches, locally higher to 6 inch plus amounts. If we just zoom into the Northeast here, this is where the totals get pretty interesting as we stretch throughout the Memorial Day weekend here. So watch this. As we stretch through Thursday into Friday and then Saturday, a lot of this falling Thursday and Friday, luckily. But here it is. Yeah, we got some of these amounts closer to this 2.5, close to 3-inch amounts out here on Long Island and parts of eastern Massachusetts here. And look at parts of western Pennsylvania. Yeah, you're getting upwards of 2, maybe some of these locations approaching 3 inches. And don't forget, before we continue with more weather coverage here, if you haven't subscribed to my weather channel here, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell notification button. If you made it this far in the video and you haven't liked the video, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget a link at the end of this video and a link down below. If you haven't caught my Hurricane 2025 Outlook, I have that whole video for you, so be sure to watch that. I go over this entire hurricane season. Let's continue. All right, if we take a look at our upper air weather pattern here on our European run, you can see what's going to be the dominant weather feature, this big old East Coast trough. The big question is, does it completely get out of here in time for Memorial Day weekend? Well, it's just not looking that way, at least through the first part. We do try to lift this out a little bit through Sunday and Monday, so some of you might eke out a decent day Sunday and part of Monday, but it's going to be a stretch here at this point. Now, look at this. As we stretch through Wednesday, the 28th, 29th, and the 30th, we got more trouble coming next week with another massive, this one looks like a bigger trough than the one we're dealing with this week. And this one really goes negatively tilted here by the 31st. So once again, lining right up with the weekend again, we could be looking at some serious rain, wind, and just miserable weather here. Now, if you're into nor'easters, this is the thing for you. But if you're ready for summertime weather, late spring weather, it's just not looking really good, especially on the weekends. And when you see this out here into Alaska here, Gulf of Alaska, this big ridge, you know this is going to be trouble downstream. Now, one thing that is interesting, by the 3rd, that 4th, 5th, and 6th into June here, we do start to get some ridging back east. So hopefully we can hold on to a little bit of this. And looking at our MJO index, yeah, this is kind of curious because it does stay in phase 3, 4 area, sometimes 5. And we do try to, some of the models are trying to branch it off towards 8 and 1, which is the more active phases. And our NAO index continues to remain negative. We may try to make a run towards neutral phase by the first week of June. All right, so for our Canadian weather outlook here, let's see what we got going on. Very unsettled, just like the eastern part of the U.S. Look at Ontario, especially the eastern half of Ontario and much of Quebec here. This is what we're going to be looking at. Lots of shower action. New Brunswick is going to take the brunt of the moisture here, along with Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. Look at this through Friday afternoon here. This low moving ashore in New Brunswick. Lots of heavy rain and wind continuing up here into the Canadian Maritimes. Now look at this. We do start to clear it out. High pressure building in across much of Canada. Look at this. The only parts of Canada, a few spritzels down in through parts of southeastern Ontario here, way up here into northern Quebec, and look at British Columbia out here. This is where we're seeing some of these Pacific systems move in, just pummeling those mountain and valley locations out here. Now look at through the 29th to the 30th. We do start to see another low pressure diving southward here across the Canadian Maritimes. That'll bring some shower action. Now watch this on the 30th. We do start to see some evidence of some shower and thunderstorm action across the prairie areas, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Some of these could pack a punch with damaging wind, large hail. That pushes to the north, and then we get a stronger system June 2nd pushing up across southern Manitoba and Saskatchewan. This would be some heavy rain and wind on the backside here, but this in front of it could be some strong to severe thunderstorms pushing through parts of southern Manitoba and southwestern Ontario. So we'll continue to watch it. Look at this, some really dry conditions across Ontario and Quebec through the first part of June. And if we look at rainfall totals here across Canada, we can actually get this thing to work. There we go. So look at this. As we stretch through the end of the month, through the first week of June, you can see what's going to be happening here. Of course, the West Coast Pacific systems do not want to end for some reason this year. So we're going to continue to get those amounts, 150, close to 200 millimeters plus 250 millimeters, not out of the question. Look at Southeast Canada, though. We got some activity here in southern Ontario and New Brunswick here. We're going to be looking at rainfall totals in excess of 60 to as much as 90 millimeters, locally higher, close to 100 millimeters here in northern New Brunswick. And is there any snow that we got to worry about here in Canada? There's not a lot. That's the good news here. Mostly the Western Rockies out here, Western British Columbia, the most mountainous peaks, and maybe some spritzels of snow here. This is grasping for straws here into southeastern Quebec into northern New Brunswick, but most of it's way up by the Arctic Circle here. All right, so temperatures here, wow, look at this. Upper 90s across Texas and lower 90s across the Gulf Coast, and look what we're dealing with up here in the Northeast, the Great Lakes, 50s. Yeah, Thursday into Friday. Look at this. If we can get the exact day there. There we go. So look at that. Friday, May 23rd, holding on to 50s across the Northeast, Ohio Valley, and the Great Lakes. Look at this heat across the south. You know, in between, we're going to get those big complexes of showers and thunderstorms. This nor'easter in the Northeast just continuing to wrap up Saturday, but look at the heat building here in Texas and Oklahoma, 90s and pushing near 100 into Sunday. Look at the temperature disparity here. If I can get my pencil, there we go. Look at that. We're starting to warm up here in the Ohio Valley Northeast. We might actually crack into the 60s here on Sunday. Now, here Memorial Day, it is looking a little bit better. Now, there's this cold pool of air, 60s here, mid-60s through the Midwest into the Great Lakes, but we might actually crack 70 in parts of the Northeast here on Memorial Day. And then Tuesday, we continue to try to warm things up, still holding on to some interior 60s here in a parts of interior Northeast and New England. The extended forecast from hometown fairs, Binghamton, Scranton, Susquehanna, River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. Yeah, this is not fun to talk about. It is showers through Thursday into Friday. We'll have some gusty winds kick up from time to time, but big story is going to be the rain. We could be looking at close to 1 to 2 inches solid over the next couple days with more rain into Saturday. Sunday might be our only good day. Maybe no rain at all, partly sunny, high in the mid-60s. Memorial Day, we get a chance of scattered showers. We actually make it into the low 70s, however, into next week, but we're continuing with those shower chances. And before we continue with more weather coverage, check out these amazing, awesome maps from my affiliate here.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone. Share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.